said he went to the park, but not really to the park.
Double strength on the side of the too.
That's good way to
That was great.
It's fun, yeah. But, you know, been on road the night for 6 months.
I'm trying to figure out,
You're a good citizen.
yeah, it's funny, I wanted to.
So was that you on Waterside this morning with the guy at the pool guy in a white pickup truck? Boy, am I so glad you finally got him. Yeah, he drives into a town like he's a bat out of hell. Yeah.
Hopefully they'll slow down.
Yeah.
He might speed up now because his wallet's a little bit low.
Yeah, there you go.
I was just sitting here, and actually I had lunch. I was just on eating lunch at the same time, running trailers. I get a guy jumping out, and he did 34 coming towards me. And really comes in Park Street, passes, and I hit the back rear, and kicked it up to 38.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And he hands me 2 tickets. That was at 12:15. At 11:13, he got 99 miles an hour and a 7-minute turn right from FHP. And then a second ticket from FHP today. This is, oh, man, you can't drive another.
Yeah, expensive day for him, isn't it? He's going to have to clean a lot more pools to pay today.
Yeah, that was the other guy.
Smart spot's not working. What is my, something's preventing me from doing it.
99
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
$281 ticket.
Yeah.
The other one was for $113. And now you get another $113.
What did it?
Yes. Yeah. That's the best way to see it. Yeah. It's hard to tell because when there's a lot of.
I got the impression about an hour ago that whole thing's falling apart. She doesn't have the support she thinks she's got.
Do you want to tell people? Listen.
We have one kid, so
Did you ask where the drum was? Did you get any?
Yeah, we got it. I forgot it was. Yeah.
That's what they call
They're all kind of connected. Savannah Square connects to.
You can sit up here if you want to. By the way,
You guys are sitting at the table. Well, Adam's got to sit up here though.
And Jack.
And Jack's here. There's
Adam, Jack,
Adam,
who
and
else?
Jack, and then we have
Bob.
spots, and we're getting some more copies. So if you don't have
Bob coming in?
Bob's not coming.
Okay. Is he in Boston, Massachusetts? Yeah. He usually starts in the summer.
I think
He's away somewhere.
we'll be the wrong. Yeah, you don't want us. Our reputations precede us.
What reputations?
Thank you. How are you? Did you just run or run over here? Or what? I have a water bottle. I should fill it up. Welcome.
So where's Adam?
Adam's coming. I spoke to him on the phone. I'm going to leave.
After this one, so we have to be done by 5:30. I think that's the reason why.
I get phone calls from emails together. It's just $50,000 of release right now.
This is being recorded.
On the website.
No, not already. Well, I don't know. Yeah. Hopefully you won't. Is it streaming right now?
Wait, those are all.
I take back what I said. He posted all of them.
Just shake your head.
He posted that. Yeah, he posted that. He took excerpts from it and posted it.
I just don't really want to see this. I don't see people.
Yeah, because.
But owner's comment period is
They look at
So
that.
if you want to take off after owner's comment period or that kind of stuff, you could always do that. Yeah, they're gonna talk about the format, and then there's the first thing on the agenda is owner's comment period. So you could, yeah, and then we're talking about some trail system and also some other stuff. But honestly, if you're here for owner's comment, you can stay as long as you want. Just do owner's comment and then be home. Really.
Hello dear, how are you?
This stuff we don't want to say. This is
You want to sit on the good side?
Oh, see this lake?
Must be something exciting to talk about today.
Was somebody here?
Crow owns the whole thing.
Here.
Crow owns this whole.
What's the big deal then on putting a sidewalk in there?
I was gonna say we can share.
This part here, this is 33, but we own this all the way. These are all our parcels here,
Sounds
all the
like.
way over to here. Okay. And here's the interesting thing.
It's not about being sick all day today, but
And those sides, and this street here, and both sides of the sidewalk. And this street here,
the
both sides of the sidewalk.
meetings that
Because they didn't want to have, we could never have
You have more after
a
this?
gated community, but it gave us the ability to shut the roads down.
Yeah.
See, but when
so sad.
let me just show you one thing. Remember on our drive around, I asked you about that one bit of property.
If I wanted that, I would say I would tell me how it's going to improve you
Well, that's good to know.
It's interesting stuff.
I didn't think that was, I don't think.
Yeah, it will get done anyways. I just wanted to know it to be.
Yeah, and that's really the thing. It's just making an open play field and people can play on it.
I always thought that would be a great spot for the dog park.
I mean, we'll make it happen, but I just want to just say, listen, if there's a position at the 49ers, I'll take it. If it's open, blah, blah, blah. Then she talked to me and like, okay, let's offer her. You know, that kind of thing. I want her to kind of, do more of that.
I feel very important here. I got the microphone.
Yeah, I don't think that we should. So, yeah, okay.
Do you have that in your wallet?
Okay, all right, bye.
Maybe I should move it over a little.
Really?
I'm on the Civic Quarter Trail Subcommittee.
Oops, I'm sorry. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to begin the meeting of the Recreation Master Plan Task Force. Adam, who's our chairman, is en route, and I'm sure he'll get caught up. But in the meantime, we'll start out with the agenda. We have owner's comment period. So if anybody has any questions or comments about the agenda, please step forward and
Do we have a mic also or something, or are we going to hear them?
Mics are picking up everything in the room.
So,
And I've just been relieved of my duties, so here's that. But let me just put to you, owner's comments, let's try and limit the comments to no more than 3 minutes on a subject. Okay? Just so because we got another meeting right after this at 6 o'clock. So you can begin because we're already starting the meeting.
We said owner's comments, so we're going to start with that, right?
Well, nobody's driving.
Nobody else?
Owner's comments?
Who wants to comment?
And there's a few more spots at the table.
Yeah, please.
Oh, yeah, and also, if you wanted to sit at the table and actually participate in this meeting, we do have some spots, so we'll go over stuff.
At the table to participate.
And we have more of these coming, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. If you would like to raise your hand, I have two right here.
Yeah, so we'll ask, yeah, he's right. He's the guy running it, so.
It's really more of a clarification. My husband and I had sat down with Bob about a year ago and reviewed the master recreation plan. And I made a comment about that there's a lot of, quote, fields being added in town to our parks. And he said, no new fields are being added. And I said, but I know I saw fields, so I didn't want to argue. When I went home and I looked at it, and I still saw something like North Village had a sports court, and I saw a full multi-purpose field in East Village and in Spring Park. And what's come up over the last last week on the forum is, and it seems to be that some people are saying that some fields are already considered athletic fields, that they've already become athletic fields, which is making them better. And some people say, no, that never happened. So that's just really my clarification.
I think that's what these conversations are to talk about and discuss.
So I'm not assuming that they are.
No, but I think I will add that I think there's a lot of gray when you talk about a field. So an open space that is 300 feet by 300 feet, you could easily play football or lacrosse or soccer or maybe even Little League Baseball on. But can you do that when it's not marked? Can you do that when it doesn't have a fence? To some degree. Is it an athletic field when it doesn't have bleachers or a locker room? Certainly it can be. So I think it gets very nebulous when we start defining things black and white, because athletic fields, play fields to throw a frisbee or fly a kite, come in all shapes and sizes. It just depends on what the community wants its use to be and how much you define it within that.
And just to add on to that, I think a bigger open space, athletic programming for youth and adults, they have parameters behind how they play. So a soccer field has a minimum and maximum size. A baseball field has face length for different age groups. All different sports groups have parameters. So the bigger field can be utilized if it's big enough to put a soccer field, put a lacrosse field, put a flag football field. It can also be used for smaller type activities like throwing a frisbee, playing catch with your kids. Or just walking out there with your dog. So open field space is open field space. You can utilize for multiple different purposes.
Well, I think the feeling was that because they already been labeled athletic fields, it was supposed to be okay to. That's why there was equipment on it already, and now with that's just the way I had read how Bob presented it. That now we're just going to make them
Is there a specific field you're talking about though, or something like that?
Just East Village, North, and I don't know what the sports board is, but I was told that.
I think they became, I think at the very beginning, of course, it was empty land, right? It never had a lacrosse net on it or goal, and never had a soccer one or anything like that. Never played football. But I think that as the community grew over the last, 20 years-ish, I think that we've added those things because residents have kind of asked for those things in those neighborhoods. So, and a lot of it, I could only speak maybe soccer-wise, is when we don't have enough room to practice for 350 kids to practice, we had to practice in East Village, put a goal in East Village. You had to practice, say, North Village, maybe move a goal, that kind of stuff. So lacrosse, the goals made it there because there was no other place for lacrosse to play. In fact, the high school plays there and stuff like that. So there was no other place. So it kind of, I think one of those things just happens. What happens, a lot of stuff is, you don't define it until almost like, a guest experience happens at a theme park. The guests tell us where to go. Same thing here is that the residents kind of tell us a little bit, and they told us they needed those things, and they started using them, and I think that's where we came up with a lot of it,
So a follow-up on that, if East Village and entirely East Village was what I'm most concerned about, if that was your interim solution for the lacrosse goals, is the master plan putting that lacrosse field somewhere else, or are you changing that to a permanent location? And then caveat to that is, if that's an athletic field, are you painting lines and housing soccer goals and things of that nature to depreciate the assets around that location?
It's a good question.
We really haven't even gotten
I would say that hasn't been decided. The fact is though, the master plan overall, I think we could all say, would try to take care of that, because I think we feel like, I live in East Village too, by the way, that and probably the same thing, that it may be used for lacrosse now, and maybe if we work with the master plan, we could find another place to play lacrosse. I think that's kind of the goal. So maybe East Village is not the most appropriate place to play games and have people from the outside and that kind of stuff. And they only play there because it's a default. They didn't have any place to play. So we encourage them to play because we have no other place. But I think the master plan hopefully will take care of these things, and we don't have the answer, but I think that's the goal. And that's this whole plan is to figure out where that can go.
I think that makes the answer to the question.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that it's not formally yet been anointed as a...
No. And again, I live in East Village, so I can say I would rather them, and I think they would rather go to a place that's more appropriate to play lacrosse. And I think that I would rather them go, and most residents. But it's one of those things where it's just they had nowhere else to go. That's the issue.
Jack brought a good point recapping the last time we were all together. Some of us were here, so many new faces though. And really the three kind of big things that came out of that conversation were, again, improving the dog park for the civic corridor into further development. Setting up a subcommittee to look at the trail that could connect North Village to the library parcel, for lack of better description. And then really the third section being the conversations that we're going to start today with what pieces go where in terms of classification. So like the East Village Park, for example, that large tract of land, what are the right purposes for that land in the sense of, is it athletic fields? Is it a community garden? Does it have a playground? Those things, without necessarily going, a soccer field is going to go here, a playground is going to go here. What's the right type of use for that? And the easiest way to think of relating to that is what you find in mall developers or retail developers, is they'll go, this is a restaurant parcel. What they don't do is say, I want a Thai restaurant or a McDonald's necessarily. They might get to that level of going, I want a quick serve versus a sit down versus a high end. But they look at it as, what's a restaurant versus a retailer? What's an attraction or an entertainment thing like a movie theater versus a retailer? Because they want to create the right mix. And I think that's what the goal of this group is to create the right mix in the right place so that things are in concert with each other, that they can, it's kind of urban planning at its basic in the sense of you don't put high-end estate-style homes next to a automotive factory. It just doesn't. So you got to find out what the right pieces and parts are. And then the other thing to add kind of on East Village is that that park, in some way, shape, or form, was intended by the developer to have some athletic component to it, hence the backstop there. Now we could have a lot of great debate about what level of backstop, and the field never painted, it doesn't have a back fence, but that little bit of it was in its initial intention that people would play some sort of sport with that situation, probably some sort of baseball or softball, but it's been there since day one. So that's another component to think about. Jack, do you want to add anything to that? Let's cover it off. All right, any other things for the owner's comment period? Again, the conversation is to be that, just conversational.
Do we have any ideas on running costs in regards to having additional facilities like restrooms and lighting for exercise paths and so forth? Do you have any considerations yet on that?
The capital versus the ongoing maintenance cost? Yeah, we're really only started on that. I know Steve has done some, so maybe you can add some.
Preliminary on the ongoing maintenance and operation costs, and we have some rough ideas based on what we already had for our existing maintenance operations, but
It's not out of the ball. What I'm looking for is more of what's the cost per usage charge, what's additional charge, and what the responsibility of the owners will have to be in regards to additional dues and fees and so forth.
Well,
It's
here's-
out of the ballpark.
This all resulted, I mean, most of this capital improvement fund things a long time ago, and the goal was not to increase 1 cent to dues. Okay, so we're going to try to stay within that. And I got to say, what do we have right now on that fund?
it's just under 1.1 million. It's 1.08.
Yeah, it's growing between $40,000 and $50,000 a month.
And I would add to Jack's note on that, the funding comes from multiple places, the capital improvement being a primary, but the loan on this building will retire, correct me from December, and November, excuse me. So there's initial potential source of funding there, as well as the not to be fully completed yet apartments on Celebration Boulevard pay a recreation fee of $233. Okay, so 270. And so that again is another operational source of revenue. But to Jack's point, the goal is to not increase dues with any new improvement. Yeah.
Joseph Flennihan, Celebration Avenue. Steve, could you just elaborate a little bit on the financials that are charged to the groups that ask for priority use of these fields? Because there is a per person charge above and beyond that is covered by the group coming in that is not distributed to residents as a whole.
Right, there's a $7 per participant fee that the youth groups take back.
$10?
$10, I'm sorry. There was a discussion of $10. The funds that we get for that, the revenue from that, is part of the formula for determining annual assessments. So when we look at all the expenses, this is what it costs to operate this community. We add in any revenue on top of that, then we get our number of what the assessment is.
So what you're saying is that maintenance costs and financials come from the groups that actually use it, similar to what was discussed with the dog park or other facilities that people would pay in if they're utilizing these facilities.
Right. From the big picture standpoint, it goes to offset the overall cost of maintenance for these facilities.
Thank you.
That was a follow-up question to his question, Steve. It's $10 a child, and that doesn't matter whether they live in Celebration and own a home and their parents pay homeowners do, or if they live in Kissimmee. Is that correct?
And why is that? It could change. That's what the fee is right now.
So why would you set up a fee that charges the same amount for parents that have already funded to build the park, et cetera, as you would someone from not in this area?
I might be able to answer a little bit of that. I think first, the board approved it was 5, went to 10.
Right.
It doesn't mean we couldn't do it. I think that it may be an issue for some groups. So for Little League Baseball, their charter is based on West Osceola. So they have a charter based on the whole entire. Let me just finish a quick second. Sorry. Yeah. So it's based on all of West Osceola. So I don't know if they can charge more for somebody who's outside because their charter with Little League says that they have to treat everybody equally. I think. So I think that may be one of the reasons.
I feel less strongly about it on the school ground property because it's not owned.
It's not ours.
You guys, even though you do the maintenance on it.
And the lighting. And the lights come from us too, yeah.
I understand that. I feel less
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
right. Well, maybe, I mean, it's a good point. We haven't built the civic order, but maybe we do something differently to civic order because Little League might not be an issue there anyway. But it's a good point. We haven't thought about
I'm
it.
with you.
Yeah, we haven't
I
thought about
wasn't
it.
formally on the board. We had a great debate. Steve, Lee, and I, there's a good 20-minute in a workshop or a meeting
Yeah.
about that same topic. Hunters Creek, for example, their soccer league, which is recreation, just like Celebration Soccer is in the sense that it's separate from the homeowners association. If you're a member of the association and you have to prove it, you pay X. If you're not a member of the association, you pay the X plus $30 as their surcharge. So to give you a frame of reference of 10 versus 30, and only to those who don't live in the association.
Is it $10 per child per use, or is it $10
Season.
per season?
So theoretically, you have 2 seasons. It's basically 2 seasons a year. So that's probably your best way to think about it. So twice a year, and depending on the amount of kids.
Yeah, I do have a question. Since we have a couple of different representations from different sports, what's the percentage of the kids that are not from Celebration?
Small.
That's
Very
My
small.
daughter's played in I would say at least 90% of the kids that she plays with are all residents.
We ran a number for Town Hall. Do you remember what's Joseph? Our
Celebration Youth Soccer did counts before as well. The number is usually, for our typical season, is 4 to 1. For Celebration residents and non-residents.
Yeah.
All residents,
And we don't even know. We just look at the zip code, and then we look at the name. So we don't ask. But it's a good point for
Our last survey was done by Street Trust.
Yeah.
So all of that was verified, and we have direct numbers as to percentages that are residents within our program.
There's maybe of the 80 girls that participate, 5 are from out the Hunter Street area or outside of town.
And I know for tennis, it's the same thing. I think all of them actually are residents of Celebration.
And even the ones that are probably non-resident, most of them are probably in school here. You know what I mean? So it's one of these things that we haven't. It hasn't been an issue really, but it's a point. We get it. The residents are paying into something. It's we totally understand.
Yep. So
just to make sure I have the right number on record with the camera, it's 282.54.
282.54 is the apartment recreation fee. So we can all agree to that. All right, so if there's no other owner's comment, let's move on to number 2 on the agenda. Okay, so we've got an update from the Civic Corridor Trail Subcommittee.
I'm Dory Boyer. I've been on the Parks and Rec Committee for going on about 13 years, and I think that it's important that people know that I don't have any dogs in this fight or anything like that. Literally. I think everything should be put on the table, and as they have already said, that one of the things that I think is important is we look at the fields and we make sure they're pristine, they're in good shape. Whether, and when you go into the corridor, whether you little post-its, what this could be, what this could be, and what this could be, I think is all going to move around, but eventually the whole picture would make a very great, theme for Parks and Recreation. But when I was, we were talking about this last time about the corridor and what could go in there, what is the access? How do you connect the dots from the trails to there? How do you get in there? And so on and so forth. I started thinking, well, we don't know, and it's true, we do not know what's going to go in the corridor. It's still very much an open canvas. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be important to find out what is going out in the front yard on 192 in that area, so that we don't, if they're going to be putting it out there, why would we put it in here? So I started networking with, first I started on June 30th with Dan Louvier for this City of Kissimmee Parks and Recreation and Facilities Director, and I asked him that question. I said, we would like to know, is there anything going on that you are planning, and so that we would take that off? And basically, he said that the City of Kissimmee really doesn't go much past Old Town as far as the development. And he also told me, in our Parks and Recreation Committee years ago went and met with the Osceola County Parks and Rec to say, hey, what can you do for us out here on West 192? And they said, at that time, Dan, there were not a whole lot being planned. And actually, Mr. Jewson, who was our liaison with CROA, joined the committee. Well, I was interested to find out that that committee no longer exists. So that has been disbanded. But he said who you need to speak with is Mary Beth Salisbury, who is the Osceola County Community Resource Director. So I called her and I asked her the same question, what is being planned in Osceola County? And she said, well, at this time there are no plans for new fields in this area or anywhere in Osceola County. They have basically in the area in Osceola County 52 Little League teams and only 14 fields. I was very surprised about that. Their plan going forward is to work on their existing fields and bring them up to where they need to be, because with the downturn of the economy, they're just catching their breath, and now they have the funds and they're going to work on those fields. She did say Four Corners had some land that they were possibly going to do a joint deal with, but the property owners over there decided against a county partnership and they wanted to keep it exclusive for the community residents. They are willing to also do partnerships, but normally they're looking for about 40 plus acres. I also said, well, you know, we'd really like to see over here on West 192 a park like Austin Tyndall. That's beautiful. They have the fields, they're multi-use, they have the trails and so on and so forth. They have the concession stands. Also very surprised to find out no county dollars goes towards funding Austin Tyndall Park. It is all 100% tourist funded by heads in the bed tourist tax. I was very surprised, and that is beautiful.
Because they have soccer events and lacrosse events. They have big events. Yeah. Tournaments and events.
That's it.
It's what a lot of counties are investing into now, sports marketing. Huge money maker. They've seen Disney be successful at it, and every county wants to be part of it.
So I thought that was interesting. Then Dan also mentioned they have created, because somewhere in one of the blogs I saw, well, you know, is anybody out here in West 192? They just in the past month or two hired an executive director of West 192 Development, and that's Dave, and I'm going to say his name not well, Bouchette. I'm just wondering maybe he might have come today. But I also asked him, are there any plans for soccer or baseball fields out there? No, there are not. What they're planning on doing, number one thing that they want to do is linear parks down West 192 to increase the width of the sidewalks, change out the trees with more canopy trees to allow for hiking, walking, biking, rollerblading, and so on. And but he did say that, I guess this is becoming a little more popular, there's 5 DOT retention ponds that may be converted into walking trails that enhance the landscaping to create a park for seniors and with passive exercise stations. So that might be in our neighborhood right outside. The other thing was, okay, so what else is there out there possibly? Well, the other thing I said, one of the things that we talked about years ago on the survey, although I don't think we should necessarily stay with the survey, I think we've grown from that, and things are growing outside the bubble, which may alter our thoughts on some of those things. And one was a skate park. Again, dog park, skate park, and the one in the backyard. Only find out that Zero Gravity, they've now purchased 75 acres, about 4 or 5 miles from here, $310 million project, and it's going to be a 25 square foot indoor-outdoor skate park, rock climbing, zip line, motocross track, a 14-story ski and snowboard mountain, surfing, BMX racing, and they will also be being a venue for X Games and so on and so forth. And one gentleman who's part of I think the 5-man team is an experienced international theme park consultant worldwide and has built a $4.5 billion Ferrari World theme park in Abu Dhabi, and he's just one of the group of experienced developers. So they're building a magnificent skate park, and I said, well, if we had one here, yes, maybe we could do it $30,000, but would kids really go? I'd say maybe not because it's only $30,000, but because they're going to go where the action is. That's where they're going to be. So to me, that would be something that we perhaps take off the list of the wish list that we have in our 10 pounds of wishes and our 5-pound bag. It has been the land that I just read. The land last that has been secured, and the county has given their blessing.
Yeah, it's actually right behind the West 192 Target, just past 192, or 535, excuse me. Not the Rolling Oaks one and 429, the one closer to Kissimmee. The older one, let's go with that. Yes. So it is literally directly behind that parcel, and it was acquired from Westgate. It was the south.
And just basically almost right across the street from that, and this is what Dan said, you really need to learn about this. So I did go to the meeting last week at the Kissimmee Town Hall, and they have now, it's already underway, the Shingle Creek Regional Multi-Use Trail. It has received presidential acclaim, and it's now on the list of America's great outdoors, and was also named Shingle Creek National Wildlife Refuge. It is a multi-use recreational trail being developed through the cooperation of 4 governments: City of Kissimmee, City of Orlando, Orange County, and Osceola County. It is a coast-to-coast, statewide trail system. It is a vision, and funding and support began 25 years ago. And it is basically they're connecting the dots now. And it will have canoeing. It will connect the creek beds with the trails. And it is, let's see, there will be kayaking, canoeing, boating, paddleboard, and so on and so forth. When it's completed, it will be 32 miles long. The trail will be a pedestrian trail for bicycles and so on, with asphalt multi-use boardwalk, so on and so forth. 12 to 14 feet wide. And if you have been down to John Young Parkway, you saw the monstrosity bridge that crosses over. That is part of it. They are also building a new one. It's planned. We saw the designs. They're planning one by the Shingle Creek right by the loop, and it will go off across Osceola Parkway. There will be parking there. That's 10 minutes from our beautiful celebration. So if you're, it is also, the network will extend from Kissimmee to Waukegan Springs State Park, and from Orlando to Muscogee.
Mascot.
Okay, and there will be various amenities such as landscaping, of course, rest areas, benches, bike racks, viewing platforms, vistas, pet station, visitors, solar box coffers, shelters, picnic areas, and so on and so forth. It's going to be quite amazing. And just down across from where the other snowboard thing is, currently it's the Shingle Creek Paddle Trail. It will be 10 miles long. And it right now it is open. It is pet friendly. You can take your dogs there. It's a almost about 1.25 mile loop. It looks like Jurassic Park. It's beautiful, and eventually you'll be able to canoe to make it an island where they have camping. And then they bought 3 islands, so there's camping and stuff. So this is just an amazing trail system right on our front door.
Dory, speaking of that, it looks to me like that's going to run through, that Osceola owns 160 acres near where that park, the water park you were talking about, and right on Shingle Creek, that's undeveloped.
Right.
The Shingle Creek Regional Park.
Yeah, this is.
Have they done anything with, are they going to do anything with, that's 160 acres.
Well, here's.
And that's not far from us.
This is the map of the area. Here in Como, and it goes all the way up here. This is the loop. This is the map. And if you go on, you can read a lot about the Shingle Creek Regional Trail. But it is amazing. And where the yellow is already in. And so I don't know how far, basically if you read on here or you look at, they have a map on that website. So and it tells you what has been done, what's planned, what's in phase 1. And the meeting last week was on phase 2. They're starting phase 2 of that. So with that said, one of the things that we had talked about was what about our trails? And it would appear that the goal of the committee is to try to connect the dots of the extensive trail system that we currently have through the town and the wetlands and the newly constructed parks and regional facilities, so that it would provide an opportunity for recreation as well as an alternate mode of transportation. What do we currently have in Celebration? Well, we have a quite extensive trail. This is the trail that we have. And currently we have in each village, we have a minimum of 2 miles up to, and it's really hard to put a maximum on it, but at least we have 2.8 miles loops and up to 20 miles trails if you connect them all. And the one area that we had talked about, and I went and met with Brian at the CBD and looked at the maps and so on and so forth, because one of the things is if we have the North Village entrance there, the civic corridor, I'd say it's sort of like a boot, and the top of the boot is where the library is, and then it comes down around. The inside, of course, is where the golf course is. Would they allow us to put a trail? Probably for liability reasons, I would say no, because someone might get hit with a golf ball over there. So what's on the inside, down by the foot of the boot? Well, you have CDD property comes down. Crowell property comes down on either side of a creek bed. The creek bed is owned by DOT.
Actually, Dory, only the small portion is owned by Greedy Creek. We own the rest of that creek bed.
Okay, well, what we were talking about was how do you get from point A to point B, okay?
Yeah.
So if you were to, let's say, open that, because there's two things. One, you have to cross over water. Two, you have to make sure emergency vehicles can get in. So if you put on this side, closest to North Village, a park there, your options would be you could drive in, put a parking lot there, because it was voted, I guess, a while back, you can't put a road all the way through from North Village entrance to the library, let's say. So your options could be to drive in, have a parking lot, and have the pickleball or the horseshoes or whatever you'd want, and it would be self-contained. Now, could you put through the creek bed, could you put a pedestrian crossover? Yes, you could. If you didn't put an opening, you had the pedestrian cross bridge, there's a very good chance if it's wide enough, you could get emergency vehicles up to that point and then cross over. But what I did find out was if you go completely down, and I actually went and walked this with him, there you could go on top of the culvert and actually walk across without having to put a pedestrian bridge. But then you would probably have to have access from the front street to get to that point. So someone had come to the last meeting and said, well, I think we should be able to walk from North Village to the dog park. Well, it just dawned on me that we already have one. And I drove it today, and it's exactly 1 mile, and it's called Golf Park. Because the entrance that you would use to drive in would be at Celebration Avenue and Boulevard. If you were to walk in, there's a green barrier there. That's where you would walk in. But if you take about 20 paces down, you're on the corner of Golf Park. Golf Park has 10 benches, about 10 lights, and so it's lit. And it's exactly from that corner to the library, 1 mile.
Wow, that's cheaper than a trail, too, isn't it?
That's what I was thinking. And I even called and found out that the Windmill Restaurant outside is dog friendly, so you can walk over there, have breakfast or lunch, and then continue to the dog park. That would be the simplest thing. So if we were to thinking about how would we want to use the funds going forward to go down into that culvert and build something through there, it is not, from my understanding, it's not CDD property at all, although CDD maintains it, so it's either Crowa property.
Some of it's Crowa, some of it's DOT.
Okay, so that's the story on that, and that is all I have. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Thank you.
Wow.
Okay. Anything else?
I say we adjourn the meeting.
So that means we don't have to do anything.
Well, I have lots of pictures and lots of information. And it's all, it's very exciting. It's very exciting.
I guess the walking trail idea, if you don't have some type of walking access from that North Village side, you're going to be using more of the civic corridor for parking spaces on the other side. So does it make sense to have a parking lot there so that you can walk to the civic corridor park, than to have one side.
Yeah, I wish Jeffrey were here when he kind of laid out some ratios in that. He's all right. Jeffrey Malaby, the architect, worked on a lot of this, and he always believed that any of the parcels on the Civic Corridor were drive parcels, if you will, because there really is no walkability. And the example being, and I'll pick on Robert for a moment, he lives right across the street from Spring Park. So if he were going to go to the Easter egg hunt or go to something else that's at Spring Park, there's no way he'd get in the car. It just would be silly. My wife and I that live on campus, if we're going to Lakeside, it's sort of like a 50-50. If we think it's going to be busy, we'll walk. If it's going to not be busy, we'll drive. So the Civic Corridor, though, he being Jeffrey, always believed that every bit of that parcel is a drive parcel, because unless you're like 12 or a glutton for heat and sweat, you're probably going to want to get in the car to go.
Or it's winter.
Or it's winter. Yeah.
And also, one more thing I forgot, because I thought it was amazing. There are 26 boardwalks in Celebration, one of which is exactly 1 mile long. And I thought recently they actually have a maintenance schedule of the boardwalks. Here's the schedule. There's a couple of different locations. And which ones they clean, which ones they... Honestly, the one over by Mirasol at the lake entrance on Water Street, I came out the other morning and I thought they'd build a new bridge overnight. It was amazing. So that they are working on all those bridges, but boardwalks, but there are 26 interwoven throughout the community, the wetlands, and so on and so forth. So we have an amazing trail system. If we touch it, we don't touch it at all. It is an amazing trail system for the size of our...
I think what we're kind of hearing on this one is that, something to still look at on the list, not to plan in accordingly, but given,
connect the dots.
Connect the dots when time and money allow, but to make sure we plan for it now so that we know where it would go. But it's more about connectivity, to your point of access, than it is per se about, yeah. Okay.
Can I just ask a question, but just to make sure I understand what you're saying? We're not going to be talking about a circle, we're talking about going from one side around to the other side.
I think the simplest request was so that you could walk from the KinderCare North Village to the library, not along.
You just have to,
you'd have
I walk it all the
a
time.
new path.
It's about a mile.
Yeah, it's going to be about 6 way, half a dozen the other. As I'm looking at this map, the way you'd have to go in, you'd have to go down and up and across. Whereas you go down Golf Park, you go across and up. It's two different sides of a rectangle.
And about the same amount of time.
And probably about the same amount of time.
Except a lot less expensive.
Okay, great. So if there's no other commentary.
One information regarding Single Creek, I don't know if I walked it, but I'm sure times with the Boy Scouts. It is a project that is probably 4 to 5 years still. Many of the areas get waterlogged where you can't cross them, and it's very bug-ridden. So yes, there is a trail there. It is a very primitive trail now. And so unless you were geared to actually do, not hardcore hiking, but definitely not just let's go take an afternoon walk, not a place to do it. A couple of years away. In fact,
In
the last parcel.
2018, they said they should be.
That's when they get their last parcel and they're going to do the initial groundbreaking, but all the other accoutrements that they're doing will not be completed. Just because we walked it, and unless they've got thousands of crews coming in to come do it, it's nowhere near the way
This, like the yellow loop one, this yellow loop, I drove by that one the other day, and that is gorgeous, and it's pristine, and it's flat.
That's not ours, that's not our park here.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about our parks?
Yeah.
The one down by 192.
Right, 192.
Yeah.
Very waterlogged.
Across from the Steak and Shake.
Correct.
Yeah, in Walmart.
It's nice, but it's not.
It has more work to do. Okay. You have another thought?
Just curious, if something like this was put into the plan that needs to be developed, how far off would it take to develop this same thing?
Money. Gosh, time and money and priorities. I think that's what all these conversations are to have.
It sounds like it still would be about 2 to 3 years.
It could be, yeah. What we're trying to do is prioritize what we can do the most with the least amount of money and get the biggest bang for the buck right now.
Yeah. Sort of like that bathroom on the 3rd floor of my house. It looks nice, it functions, but it's clean.
Just because we're talking about development, 2 to 3 years for final development. Project here, we're still looking at 2 to 3 years.
10 years. 10 years.
Even more.
Yeah, I think for
final development.
for all the pieces that get laid out in this process, I think we could easily be looking at 5 to 10 years. Especially.
Money too.
Yeah, it's construction time and money. To not go into debt.
And it's also a way to discover research.
Yeah.
To Tom's point, it's always a mystery till you start. Best laid plans of mice and men. Okay, so let's move on to the celebration park types discussion. So Steve, do you want to kick us off with this?
I'll frame it a little bit.
Okay.
One of the things when you're doing master planning, you have to determine what you have and then what is the level of service that you're providing. What types of parks do you have? So you see it throughout municipality master planning all over the place. You look at what's the facility type and try and define what that is. What's the component of that? What's the core experience that you're going to have when you go to that facility? What are some potential facilities that you would have? And then you look at size, how you're going to get there, whether you're walking, riding, bike, driving. And then what's the accepted level of service? And there's some standards for level of service. But then each town or each municipality that kind of has their own flavor, depending on how they're built and what activities are more popular, those types of things. So we looked at identifying the different parks that we have and what types of parks do we have. And we determined that a typical nomenclature for parks are neighborhood parks, community parks, trails and greenways, and then signature facilities. As we were talking about neighborhood parks, we started saying not all of our neighborhood parks are similar and are like in size. We'll have some neighborhood parks that will be right across from your house that will just be a view, that will be a little bit of green space. And then we have some neighborhood parks like Long Meadow where there's a long strip that could technically be used for a field or throwing a frisbee and those types of things. So we put together a grid, and you'll see it in your packet. It's park typology, and it just kind of describes what those parks are, what the core experience, what the facilities could be, and trying to put a definition on what that usage is going to be. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of back and forth on the forums of, are they supposed to be passive? Are they supposed to be casual? Are they supposed to be active? So trying to put some potential usage to that. And then how to get there and what we think is an important level of service, what this community thinks that level of service is. So that's what this next agenda has.
Yeah, so just to add a little bit to what Steve has, if you see muse, conservation, and garden, those are kind of subcategories of the neighborhood park, just so that that's clear to if you have a black and white or a color copy. And to give you kind of frame of reference of those is a garden park might be something like what you see on Choey Court, for those who live in East Village are familiar with that. It would be a MU anywhere else, but the neighbors there, the 8 or 10 folks that live on that block, can be party central. I mean, they've really taken it as their own to do, drinks on a Friday night in the garden, or, their kids play in it and set up, tents on the weekend. It's got a life of it's something different. And we want to make sure that we respect and embrace things of that nature. Conversely, the path over here at Greenbrier, or the park over here at Greenbrier and West Park is truly just a MU. It's a big green median with a couple of park benches and a couple of trees. You might sit there when you're walking the dog for a break or to take a cell phone call, but you're probably not going to do much else at it. Both of those versus Long Meadow, as Steve pointed out, that has a large playground. It's a massive field. It has a shaded area at the closest end of downtown. And then the rest, I think, are relatively self-explanatory. So our next really agenda item is to really talk about these. What do people think? Does that make sense? Do these definitions work?
Is the level of service appropriate for this community?
What are the previous definitions that are in chapter again?
I think we have them listed in a couple different ways. We have them passive versus active, which I think sometimes passive is misunderstood as you can't do anything out there, but maybe sit and read a book. But passive, I think, a lot of times is defined as you just don't program that park. It's not really programmed for activities. You can still go out there and throw a ball and throw a frisbee, but it's not necessarily programmed for a lacrosse league or a soccer league, those types of things. So I think that's primarily how they're referred to right now. And we're trying to take a look at it more of a neighborhood park in close proximity to your house that's walkable and has open use recreation. Typically find some benches, pavilions, paths, maybe a playground at a neighborhood park.
Programming's a big key of that too, in the sense of like, you think about Spring Park, where they've got summer breakout right now, or, the Easter egg hunt, as well as, things that happen on the big field. Tom, you have a thought?
Can't reserve those parks. Those are just open parks all the time.
The neighborhood parks are pretty much.
Correct, yeah.
Now, you usually have mixed uses. A lot of times you have teams and leagues out there. Something for everyone. It can still be used as a neighborhood park because, as we pointed out, he lives right across the street. You can walk out there and play the ball. It's still open use. It doesn't have to be only for athletic use. But typically in our community, we'll see pools, sports facilities, ball fields, restrooms, open spaces, playgrounds, and then parking. A lot of times there's parking at these community type parks. And I think a lot of, when you talk about as someone that wants to go recreate or as a parent of someone that plays in youth sports, you're willing to drive a little bit more to a community park. You're willing to go a little bit further as opposed to a neighborhood park. You want something that you can just get on your bike or doing your rollerblades or walk to a neighborhood park. And then we have signature facilities, which just be specialized for a specific use. A dog park is probably only going to be used for dogs. You're not going to go and jog through there if you don't have a dog, because you'll be running through a bunch of dogs.
Yeah,
Too small for that.
Right. You're not going to do your push-ups, they will get lit.
Yeah, what you got?
Are the K fields the only ones that are locked that we can't?
Yeah, so the Cade Field is an interesting situation. It is a joint use agreement. We do not own them. They're owned by the school district of Osceola County. We pay for the maintenance of those facilities, and some minor improvements have been paid for in the past, like lighting and some other additions. And that's kind of the trade, if you will. So we cover some of their bills, and they let us have it when they're not using it. I think we'd all probably say it's a great concept. It's imperfect in execution, probably just with the nature of the beast and school security and things like that. But that's, I think paramount. I think we'd all agree to that.
Well, we've got great plans for that field, but it's all dependent on the school system right now, what plans they have. We would like to reshape those whole fields.
It's a great way to maximize use of space because you'll see more and more communities build parks with schools as a partnership. But there are laws and rules when it comes to the schools on what people can just openly access those facilities during school hours.
But even during the summer, those fields are locked.
Well, we've had a conversation about that. We're trying to, we've opened in the morning and then close them down.
We're starting to open them at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm monitoring to close them at night. With the trailer that we had, we weren't exactly sure the use agreement if we were allowed to open them for public use or not.
Well, there's more accessibility until now during the summer. I think we just had this conversation earlier last week. So they're open now if you go by them. Are you talking about for hitting on the ball?
Like baseball, so a lot of times town hall will kick us off at night.
Well, we want to make sure we know who's using it just to avoid, because a lot of times we have people that don't live in this community that come in here and do private lessons on the facilities, and there's all kinds of liability issues with that. So town hall may ask, do you live here? Do you have your...
But would town hall do that for the dog park? Why pick on just baseball?
We will. With our park monitors, we're going to be looking at tennis court usage to make sure that folks are living here. And we want to make sure we're protecting your resources.
Lifeguards do it at Lakeside. Every hour they do a check. They go to the tennis courts, they go to the basketball courts, they go to the bocce ball courts, the playground. They do check first. So it's not just at those fields, it's at all the...
But I think the fields have been closed more than we agreed a long time ago, and I think opening them up, I think with the fences on Greenbrier and Starling would be helpful or going around. So
and there's a huge difference too between just a father and son and a couple kids going out playing, and then a whole team coming in from out of town utilizing our facilities. And we've seen that happen quite a bit too. So with the new Parks and Recreation team, we're establishing those. When we're going to do that and why we check it and stuff.
What is like of the agreement with the joint distribution? then you have to renegotiate.
Renegotiate.
Between now and then.
The tough thing about the K-8 field also is that it's the largest park type parcel in Celebration. And when you look at things like baseball fields, for example, they're a specific size and shape that is difficult to fit in other facilities. So, I know there's been a lot of discussion. People call me on, well, why would you consider investing money in something you don't own? And it's a fair point. But I think every realtor would tell you one of the most important things of real estate value is the quality of your school. And a school facility that isn't well maintained, that doesn't have the fields that go along with it, does not, classify as a grade A school in any stretch. So it's a yin yang. So we have to make sure we're cautious about what we get and what we're willing to give. But it is an opportunity for us too.
And Disney did put the school in the middle of town for a reason, and it didn't have a fence when we did it. So things have changed over the years. So that was, well, originally there's a school with a field in Middletown that we all could use. That was the original concept, and then life happens like everything else, and you can't get on until 5 o'clock, 5:30 really the rules, and then they put a fence around it for security reasons, and then it becomes you can't use it because it's so hard to get on. Things have changed a little bit. Now, when we talked about the fence originally, it was supposed to be the fence, it was supposed to be open during non-school hours. It's just one of those things where we have to do a better job, but still, it's hard to use, and it's changed a little bit because security and that kind of stuff. But and also just now is a fence.
It's a real tenet though in modern urban planning to balance loads. In the sense of that's why you'll see like amusement parks built next to big stadiums because football season doesn't happen when you're up north when amusement parks are in business, and that way they both share the gigantic parking lot because you don't need 2 seas of asphalt. Same thing with churches and other places being used for multiple things. It's more cost effective when you can use an item for more hours of the day.
My biggest problem with that field is it just looks awful. I mean, it just looks. Considering the quality of how everything else looks in this town, it just seemed like when we signed this, it was about 10 years or less.
It was a 10-year agreement. But
the answer to the question about why should we put money in it, well, you're going to put money in anything. It's only going to last about 10 years anyway. I mean,
but part of that agreement is we maintain the field, so we only have us to blame for it.
Now, we maintain the turf on the field.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily maintain the clay.
But the difference is it's being overused. That's what, if you ask me, and Steve and I have talked about this, and by the way, if you don't know Steve's background, he was the recreation manager for Seminole County, so I have a lot of experience in this. I think it's being overused. I mean, it's grass. Like you said to me, it has to rest. I mean, grass,
the tennis courts and
that's school difference than the field itself. The field itself is a little different. We're maintaining the field. We're not maintaining the tennis court. There's a difference.
He's making a great point. There's only 2 things you can control for fields. It's type of use and frequency of use of play. So if you don't have a really strong root base on a good solid Bermuda field, which is the typical surface for youth sports, it gives you the best playability. This is what happens. I mean, you get weeds that take over, you get, and all of it's like you said, I mean, roofs you have to replace every 15, 20 years. You go in and you laser level your field to sod. So there will have to be some investment, especially if you're doing sod fields, to keep them up to, and then you have to consider how much usage you put on the fields.
but whether we own land or not, I mean, it's like in England, you have leaseholds. I mean, people buy houses, fix them up, and have the lease. So, who can fix things up so you can use it as long as you have a long enough lease to say, well, that every 10 years you have to do it anyway.
It's like the Empire State Building. Most people realize that the leasing agent doesn't own it.
Right.
And it goes back to Jack's comment. We know that there's something that needs to be done. It's just, do you want to put money into it now if the school's going to turn around and do some other type of planning for utilization of this? So it's a waste if you have to tear them back up.
There are a couple of thoughts I want to get you, Tom, and yours. So why don't you start? I'm sorry.
Most other communities, they have fields that are used this much, and they're not anywhere near this bad a condition. I mean, we play in constant fields throughout Osceola, Orange, every other county. This is by far the worst fields we play on. And I'm not saying we use them more or less, but how do we use them more or less than every other community?
I think it's overall, it's at some point in time on the baseball field, somebody crowned the fields, and they probably should have been crowned that way. So again, you got to strip them, you got to laser level them, and you got to redo them. And I think the soccer field is just, they need a better type grass that's more playable, that's durable, that's used to having a lot of kids run up and down. And then we have to put together a good maintenance schedule where everybody in town understands there's going to be times when you cannot be on that field. I know we're busy, I know we have a lot going on, but you have to shut those fields down sometimes, which is another reason why we have more fields you can rotate. You can say this one's closed down for 2 weeks, this one's open.
And even when we do that, sometimes it's a school that you know what I mean. It's now we can control what we do, but then the school also has their own thing, so it's not just completely perfect. It's difficult. Tom.
So one of the challenges is many years ago when we tried to go ahead and say, all right, we're going to redo the paint the signs and stuff. The maintenance of that field is almost impossible. Because when the school closes and they do not open up until like 5:30, well, there's no way the landscapers, they're not going in at that time. And so it literally is a fight to go ahead and properly maintain that field. And then there's an X amount of what we're actually maintaining. Because I think there was discussion where we just need to mow grass, but when you saw how much it would cost to go ahead and resaw that, no one in this town will go ahead and say, yeah, let's move forward with that. It was tremendously expensive. The other problem is that the school does not water the grass. So if you go around the school, those sprinklers, they've never been turned on until, over 10 years ago.
I've never seen them on.
They never.
They did turn on once because...
Just to get Vanessa. They saw you coming.
It was 4th of July. When
That's right. One day, they wanted to do a fundraiser for the band.
Wow.
They do work.
They do work at the wrong times, but and so they don't have to mark for that. I mean, there's a long list of why these fields look like they are, and really a lot of it is it falls on the county. It's like give us the opportunity to do something.
Well, in the interim, Steve, is there anything we do with the school as far as getting the thing to water and?
Right now, I mean, the way the turf is, I think you just patch it when you can and try and keep it as green as possible.
Right,
and I mean, you really we can talk to them about increasing the water cycle. It's just you're watering the existing turf. I would agree with Tom. No point in investing $130,000 into a field of Bermuda 419 that you can't water, that you can't mow with a real mower 3 times a week. I mean, there's best practices for maintaining this. It's a living organism. You have to take care of it.
I think what that brings up is, sort of the age-old debate between PC lovers and Mac lovers. And if you go into, I love analogies, and Bill Gates is quoted saying, I just want to build great software. I don't really care what box you run it on. And Steve Jobs was all about building the software and the box because they're integrated. And everybody's going to have a different opinion on this one, but the reality is that because of the various organizations, because of CROA sort of being one linchpin in this and the various ownership stakes, they're also integrated. It's even if we were to invest money, you have to get the guarantees that you're going to have the access to mow. You need to have the guarantees that they're going to turn off the water. If not, it's just not worth it. It's all integrated.
If there's another principal there, the principal's going to say, you know what?
I'm done with you.
And there's no control that even the school board can go ahead and direct that principal to go ahead and change it. The first thing to say is, well, that's their school.
Yeah, the school board will enter into priority use agreements or facility use agreements like we have now. I know where I was in Seminole County, their policy was each principal decided usage for those fields, but the school board could enter into those agreements. And we entered into this agreement with the school board in 2007. So the key is getting the agreement to where it makes sense for what you're trying to do. If you're going to invest the money, the agreement should have something in there about when you can mow, how much watering will be done, those types of things.
And certainly with that timing, we need to get on that because that's not that far away. Just start the process early, not be under the gun.
Another comment on this subject. Has there been any type of capacity model for how many baseball fields, soccer fields, celebration needs? And then as far as
Well, $1 question.
Well, there are through National Recreation Park Association, there are standards that were done, I think, in 1996, 97. It was a professor that wrote these, and NRPA adopted them and used them. But different communities have different flavors of what type of activities are going on. So I think the standard is one athletic field, one rectangular field for every 10,000. But I've seen a lot of master plans. I review master plans throughout the United States for NRPA to get people their CAPRA accreditation. And I've seen where the communities will modify that based on the type of usage they have. Be one field per 2,000 or per 5,000 or something along those lines. And this is our opportunity, I think, as a task force and as the board to identify what that level of service should be here. Not only for walking distance, but how many fields do we need for younger kids?
Well, I think you gave an example of pool, and before you give it, pools. I'd like everyone in their mind to think, when you go to the pool here, do you think we have demands about right? It's always empty when you go, it's too full, and then Steve, why don't you share what we have versus what the industry says is appropriate?
I do not remember that number off the top of my head.
I believe, if I remember correctly,
I had it right in front of me when we were
doing
talking.
it, but I think it was only 1 or 2 for a community of our size, and we obviously have 5, if you include Artisan. So, if you go, hey, the pool's all the way down, admittedly that's a nationwide thing, and we're in Florida, so pool is probably a little more popular in Florida, but it shows that we would probably all say the pool is either we could use a little more pool capacity or just right, would be only my guess of what most people would say.
Well, the same argument can be made for tennis courts. I mean, we hear people say we invested a lot of money in tennis courts, and it's only a small segment of the community, but tennis, when you look at it, it's actually utilized more than any other facility because they play all the time. There's tennis going on in the morning, there's tennis going on in the afternoon, there's tennis going on the weekends. When it comes to youth sports, you have only prime times when you can play. Kids usually are in school, so they can't be out there during the daytime when you have a lot of tennis activity going on. So this is part of the reason why this is an agenda item, is to talk about what's the typology of our parks. Can we come to an agreement that this is what we should call them and this is our level of service? And then move on to saying, yes, these parks are described the right way, and this is how we want to utilize these parks. And then I have another map in here in your packet which jumps ahead a couple of minutes.
Let's just go.
Yeah, so actually, the big circle.
Yeah, sure. So
we know how many kids play baseball for the past 5 years, how many kids play soccer for the past 5 years. Why aren't we using those numbers?
Did you say you had
some overall?
I don't have 5 years.
This square footage for 10,000 residents or whatever.
You've got some.
I don't have 5 years in front of me right now, but I can tell you over the last year there was 660. And this is not calendar year. This is from this time last year to now. About 660 registrations for youth soccer, about 644 for Little League, 65 for lacrosse. They just haven't had their next season yet. And basketball was at about 180 for their last season. So altogether, 1,714 youth sports registrations in about a 1-year time frame. Now, from what I'm hearing from the league organizers, that number could grow if we have more capacity. There's kids that return to our space.
Just for curiosity, how many dogs do you need for one park?
I'm sorry?
How many dogs do you need for a park?
How many dogs? There's a level of service that's practiced for dogs too. I don't have it memorized, but when they looked at the design for our dog park, they did a scale, the ratio of how many square feet you need per dog, and that's how they designed that. So that's even further down in the agenda. There's actually conceptual design. And I don't know exactly what those numbers are.
It did, as a frame of reference, the city of Portland, which gets a lot of accolades for being one of the most dog-friendly in the U.S., they have something like 128 dog parks, and of those, less than 2/3 are less than 2 acres in size, and ours is larger than that. So that is a good reference of somebody that's getting accolades for that. And they have some that are larger. I mean, they have some that are part of larger park networks and that, but the vast majority of their parks are under 2 acres in size.
And how many dogs do we have here in consideration?
I don't think we really. We've never done a dog licensing service. On the kids. It's a good point, actually. Yeah, it is a good point.
Thousands.
The problem with demographics here is that the U.S. Census Bureau, I think it's only to 2010 with demographic numbers for celebration.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily have gender ties and age groups here, but we are more concerned about making sure we have the leases and the homeowner information. As we implement our retro automation system and we can take some of this information through, we have the ability to get a little bit better understanding of what our demographics are.
There are some statistics that basically, and it is trending, that there are more dogs in the communities than there are children in the communities. And that's why they're becoming very popular.
The average is a third of a dog per household. So that would mean we have about 3,000 dogs.
I think we have to remember that on the last census, we really only have about a third of the households have children. I mean, so we have to keep that in perspective. I mean, I love this, have a grandchild, and I want to provide for the best, but we just do have to remember. Do you have any?
Also keep in mind our housing types too. So of the 4,000 units in Celebration, more than half are attached dwellings, which tend to not lend themselves to traditional nuclear families as you think of that.
Do you have any of the numbers like? We don't have any. Like total population is that 7,500? I'm also looking at the total number of, I think we should have.
The total number of kids, if you can reference at least for K-8, we have at the K-8 school about 1,300, and most of the people there are, I think we're 90% is
in town.
Celebration, right? 10% is outside of Celebration.
I think the last time I talked to Renee, she said there's only about 55 kids that are not Celebration residents there.
I mean, there's about 1,800 kids and about 7,400 residents.
If you're basing it on 2010, then you'd have about 1,800 kids. If you're basing it on what we're probably averaging about 10,000, about 2,500 to 3,000 kids.
Okay, but so two-thirds of residents are still over or do not have children.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you don't play fields.
And they could have kids who aren't going to school yet.
Right. So we've got a couple questions about
Yeah, I want to make sure it might be school aged at that point.
Yep. I'm sorry,
Just, you were asking about numbers and figures. For the K through 8, if you take the available time that is available to the organizations for soccer in specific, it would be approximately from 5:30 to 8 o'clock each evening during a certain period of time during the year. That's approximately 24 weeks. During that time, it is 100% used.
Well, and along that point too, it's for every sport. So youth lacrosse needs it for the same time, youth football needs it for the same time, because that's the time that kids can go, and that's the time that the parents can get their kids to these things. And then they can't stay out all night, because you have to get their homework and fed and to bed at a certain point in time. So that 5:30 to 8 is the prime time for every single youth sport.
But and also municipalities had kind of like the discussion where I think you may be going in some ways is that municipalities had the discussion a long time ago is that if you want to keep a thriving community, what you do is you have to make sure that you have things for the youth, because the youth will be there, then a multi-generational family will stay in a town, so you don't age a community. So this is a discussion that you purposely make sure that you have things for the youth, because it does not age the community, because the community will continue to thrive and you'll have multi-generations like we do here in town. And if you don't continue to do that kind of thing, then if you didn't have places for kids to play, if you didn't have parks, then kids would not be here over the 10-year, 15-year, 20-year period. It would change the complexity of the community.
I'm not sure I'm buying this, because you have 2/3 of your family, 2/3 of your households don't have children, then I think you've got a lot of people moving into town. Don't have children, yes, the grandchildren come to visit every once in a while.
We don't want Celebration to become a senior community.
Right, exactly.
Even though some of us are seniors. I want to keep multi-generational families in Celebration.
You have to plan for it.
We got a couple of questions.
And I don't have any kids at home. I still want to see them here.
I think there is another point here. Just because you do not have children in the home does not necessarily mean that you are post-children, because marketers and statisticians label pre-family and post-family the same. And the rationale is because your spending and your lifestyle habits are equivalent. So whether you're 22 without kids or 82 without kids, you kind of spend money on the same way. Now, it may not be rap albums, it may be old school jazz, but you're buying records.
And only 9% of Celebration's population, 9% is over 65.
So we got another couple. But I want to go back to Tom, I think you had a question too.
What's amazing is you brought up the pool, and I never really thought of it that way. When whomever was developing this community, they thought, let's put in a bunch of pools everywhere. And honestly, you know, the pools just work here. You go there, they're not terribly busy. It seems like the exact right number. And it seems like we got it so amazingly wrong with the field. I mean, there's not a legitimate field in this town.
I don't have a kid in this school in town anymore, but I can tell you, when I had kids here and they wanted to play sports as badly as they played them, and they played them, we had to go to Kissimmee. We had to. There was no place.
Not even kids. Adults are leaving town, going to play sports outside. Not only kids, but
and I play sports.
Plenty of adults are doing so.
Well, because let me just think about it real quick. Is that what we use for fields? The lacrosse field is a great example because I happen to know it's 297 feet long by 162 feet wide. It's 21 yards short and 18 yards in width.
The lacrosse village?
It's not actually a lacrosse field. It's a field in the middle of a community that we utilize for lacrosse. That's not a lacrosse field, but it's the best that we have.
Right.
And the soccer fields that you play on, they're not actually soccer fields. They're too short. They're not right. They're in regulation in no way, shape, or form a soccer field. Now, it appears, I don't have anyone involved in baseball. It's been a while since I've been involved, but we do seem to have baseball fields that are actually baseball fields. They have backstops. They have bases. But nothing else here falls into that category. I don't understand how the person that developed this community got it right, completely missed on the athletic field side of the equation.
Can I say that's what we're here about?
Right? So when we're discussing, it looks like, Steve, it looks like your descriptions here, they look great. You know, you've got community down in the areas that we use for community fields, and you've got muse. That looks great. But we don't actually have athletic fields. So is there any, as we get through, are we going to discuss it all today? Do we have a plan? I guess Clint and I are sort of...
That's what we're working on.
Okay, so...
For real live sport-size fields, or as close as we can get them, based on the little tiny bit of land we have available to us. And the amount of land we have available to use is tiny for a community this size. There's no extra land sitting out on the perimeter that we can buy up like Kissimmee can. Kissimmee can go up and buy up some farmland for next to nothing and put a park in. We don't have access to any of that. Any land near us is millions of dollars an acre, you know, because it's Disney owned.
But I'm still distressed that once again, now we're starting to once again get into, you know, the most important thing in the entire world is to provide sports, rest, sports. I'm not opposed to it, but let me just, you know,
I think we have miles. I think there's a need
miles of trails. Some of the best trails in the world.
If you have to remember that 2/3 of the residents of Celebration do not have children. When you moved here to Celebration, you looked around and you saw a community that had very, very strict rules about what you could put in your front lawn. And if you want to put athletic equipment, you better have a big enough backyard so they cannot be seen from the street.
I'm going to get some other folks' opinions. Tom, I think you had a couple thoughts.
I haven't finished. Excuse me, it'll only take a second.
Okay.
What you're talking about, once again, we're starting to get back, you know, we started off okay, but once again, we're starting to get back into, let's convert our open grasslands to athletic fields, and people who basically would not be allowed, if I put a soccer goal out on my front lawn, I would get a violation, and I'd end up having to pay money. And you can't, you know, I can't put a basketball hoop out there. But somehow they're all sort of saying, a lot of people in this room, that if you want to put an athletic field in what is our community space, that's okay.
Eileen, let me get into that. First off, we have not said one thing about putting an athletic field in East Village or South Village. The only viable space we have is a civic corridor. That's the only place that is possible.
So, well, I'm going to stop you there, Jack. Physically, an architect has come in here and brought illustrated drawings of where things will fit. And I appreciate...
Fitting is not...
No. There's two sides to this. There are two sides to this, Eileen. There's the side of where it should go versus where it can physically go. Okay? So a Chevy Suburban is twice the weight and twice the size of a Mini Cooper.
There's a before we get to that, there's a philosophical discussion whether our green fields should not remain green fields and what can be used on a regular basis for anybody who wants to.
Well, now you're talking about programming versus marking.
When we go over the settings, when we go over the definitions, that's when we discuss.
Through the agenda items, what we're trying to do is give some data here so you can make data-based decisions without them. I think the point's been made over and over. You can't build new land. The land that you have is the land that you have. So now you have to look at some data to determine how do you decide what goes on that land. Master planners that are really good at this, that they went to school for it, this is how they do it. They do the research, they do community surveys, they do stakeholder meetings, then they go and they look at park typology, then they look at existing conditions, and then look at what you have available, and start looking at how you can fund it, and then they start putting the plan together. It starts getting pieced together. So part of the reason why we did the level of service map is to show you, if the question is, do we have green space in this community? Are we taking away green space in this community? If you look at the first map on neighborhood parks and proximity, we didn't even put, it's a half-mile radius, the blue circle. We didn't put a circle on every single neighborhood park, but we did on those that show that pretty much everybody that lives in this community within a half a mile of some sort of green space that you can walk to, throw a ball with your child, take your dog out there. On the flip side of this is the community park. And you can see this is a really good level of service. I've seen it up to 15 miles that you have to drive in some municipalities to get to a community park. That offer, if we agree, that offers these types of core experiences. Within Celebration, everybody has a community park within a mile of their house, except for up here in this little area at the Civic Corridor. So if we were to build a community park there, that would cover that.
Hey, that's one mile right there.
We can't easily find your house on the
So again, it's not one piece of data that you use to make this decision. It's all the data compiled together to come up with how are you going to build, how you going to build.
Well, we already have data, and this is supposed to be based, all the master plan is supposed to be data. You know, I know you said that you feel that we're beyond.
Yeah, and I just want to, I printed what you said, I color coded it, what you said, and I don't think that it's mutually exclusive. I think that what the need is can be built, and then the things that you want can also be interjected into that pot. So I think that it can, but as Steve said, that once you get the picture of, you make the list of what is needed, let's prioritize what the need is. We find an area. That doesn't mean that we can't put those pickleball courts up there and a passive trail in a nearby station. I think it will work, and I think it can happen. But I think that, so I think you prioritize it, what the greatest need is, what we don't need, what we do need, but then take the horseshoe or the pickleball or that and inject that into the perfect fit of that other park.
Well, I'm really all wondering about the fact that green spaces.
There's that, and this is what I want to get. Can I ask you a question on that?
I want to get to Don, I want to get to Tom.
What is it though for the green space that, let's use East Village for an example. What would you like to see happen on that green space? If you had your way, you were in charge of this whole thing, what would you like to see that green space?
I have two ideas. One would be that, and I know Bob, my husband and I talked to Bob about this, and my children play soccer in parks in London. They start them at 1.5 years. And people come out and they use the parks, and when they're finished, they pick up their equipment.
Okay, that's the point I was trying to get to. That's exactly the point I was trying to get to. So you don't have a beef with the kids coming out playing lacrosse, having a lacrosse field there.
I don't think it should be.
But no. Having a field on which, let me rephrase that. Having a field on which you could play lacrosse or on which you could play soccer. Your primary beef is with the designation solely as that and the equipment that gets left behind.
Because once you permanently
That's what-
leave there.
that's what I-
Let's define, I have a couple questions. Let's define permanently, so that we're all on the same page then. And let's define, excuse
Somebody
me,
said that back here, do you draw a line?
Well, you have to in order to play, yes.
and mark it, sure, you know, because.
But it goes away.
But the line-
It washes away.
Is it for Saturday afternoon that you do it and take everything away, or is it gonna be there Monday?
If the goals were gone, you wouldn't have a problem with people playing soccer
It
there.
comes out when the people play and it goes away when they're finished with it. And then the next person who wants to fly a kite has an empty field to do it. The other possibility is that you subdivide the field. And I went to look at East Village yesterday. It's not big enough, it's not a traditional field. I mean, it's not big enough for any of the traditional fields.
Actually, it could be made big enough. We looked at, Jeff Mallon did a design that showed it could be
Yeah, I
made
guess
big
it
enough.
could. I really have a very hard time cutting down trees for all this stuff. I like the trees.
Well, actually, in this case,
It didn't.
Eileen, it wasn't cutting down trees, it was moving a dry retention.
It was moving a pond.
It was not even a real pond, it was a dry retention
Right,
pond.
yeah.
I would say one thing. I think that we right over here, I guess, is the 851 building. You know, there's some soccer goals there. Driving by every day.
I mean, I leave that out because that belongs, which I understand.
Yeah,
Blue area.
but those are left out. And the other day, I saw families out there playing and kicking soccer balls. And
They don't want to play soccer.
well, then there's plenty of room where it's not in the way.
It's also dangerous. I would not let little children.
And then I've gotten, and this is me, and Martin could probably stress that the goals in Spring Park, there's no nets on there, and I've gotten more complaints about not having nets working for people to actually play than actual goals on the field for people to play. Because I mean, even North Village, we took them away because we didn't have any, and we get more complaints that it's removed from North Village than actually having them on the field where people think that they're a hazard. You know, so
But if you have some proper storage. they
we
can
don't,
be active.
unfortunately.
All right, so let's get to Tom, he's got some thoughts.
You can't move them down.
So here's
Yeah.
here's the deal. Many years ago, I told the community that the only way this community works, if you understand this community, some people don't understand this community. The only way it works is we try to go ahead and work what's best for everybody. There's something for everybody. And how does that wove into the fabric of this community? It's very, very important. You know, when people quote numbers and saying there's only this many kids, or this many dogs, or this, there's only one reason to quote that. Because they're not interested in going ahead and seeing how this is all going to work together in our community. They're interested in going ahead and knock something down. It always happens every single year. You see it all the time. How are you going to go ahead and knock this idea down? This idea, this task force, and what you guys are working on, isn't going to be knocked down. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to get knocked down because eventually something is going to go ahead and get built. This community went ahead and voted to go ahead and have additional fees from homes to go ahead and invest in recreation in this community, additional amenities, okay? There were so many suggestions, you know, from people, from kids, from teenagers, from people in their 20s, people in their 40s, seniors. Everybody wanted, how can we go ahead and have something here and there? To say only children use the parks is kind of insulting to the rest of us, because we all use the parks. You know, if you don't use the parks, okay, there's some people who don't use the pools. But love having...
I don't use the pool, so fill them in.
Well, but what I'm saying is that but people love having it because it does add value to their house. So something is going to go ahead and get built. I do agree that if there's ways to go ahead and say, okay, is there a way we can put equipment away? Is there storage facilities that fit the community that can go ahead and be stored so the green space can be established? Yes. But when we go ahead and talk about, you know, we can't have this, we can't have that, you know, this type of equipment is dangerous for this and that. Listen, we're just trying to shoot it down. It's not going to get shot down. The community already voted to go ahead and gather money to go ahead and be spent on this. The board has a responsibility to continue with that. No choice.
The equipment is only dangerous if it's just randomly left out.
All right, so we've had some really good, Robert, you have one more thing?
I was just going to say, this is a bigger discussion.
Yeah, and-
baseballs and things you can trip on.
Yeah.
That's an operation that can be
I'll tell
done
you,
in a
one of the
day.
things I've learned in the last year and a half when I sit at these meetings is that there's an awful lot of people, who will have come forward and said, we don't have this, we are maxed out. It is not just the kids, a bunch of kids who want soccer fields. I mean, I think one of the most appalling things is when you told me that the elementary school can't have a track program because they don't have a track. There is no track in town. Who's talking about the track? I mean,
high school. There is a track. There's a high school track.
Well, I'm just saying that we suddenly all, going to the soccer fields again, Let's understand that there's a whole long list of things that we are looking for.
Actually, I think if you talk about it too often, is some deep-seated feelings that you have, number one. But secondly, you just mixed apples and oranges there. You talked about the school, which is not what these guys do. They don't do the school.
Well,
the school saying that it doesn't have a track, the elementary school saying it doesn't have a track, so we can't have our kids run. That's not these guys' problem, number one. It's not the problem at all. It is the problem of these guys to figure out what we're going to put in our different parks that we do own, not what to do for the school. So you can't go throwing stuff out just because you're angry about people talking about sports fields, and you just got to get over it sometime.
It was Steve who said the part about
We need to get this design.
All right. So we're short on time, so we'd like to look at the dog park concepts today, and then also look at scheduling the next one, because obviously there's a lot more conversations.
Before you go to the next one, I'm all in agreement in that we're going to post these park types and these
Yeah, I think let's have a vote with the task force. Yep.
Okay, so we'll get them out there on the form and we'll put them on the breaking news section.
Yep. Are there any task force members that are opposed to posting these for review?
Yeah, that's okay.
Nope. Okay, great. Great point, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, so then when it comes to the dog park, we reached out to went out to bid RFP, and we ended up selecting a company called McCree Engineering and Construction, but they worked with a company called Little John, and they partnered on this project together. And they came back with some conceptual design, which we emailed them. We emailed them out to, I'm saying thank God I didn't do the design, but they did a great job with them. We emailed these designs to those folks that had expressed interest in being part of the dog park group. I think there was like 20 or so people. We also took them to our Parks and Recreation Committee and shared with them. And these are the illustrated designs that came from those concepts. I can tell you that through the feedback that we received, not everybody responded, but we had about 6 that liked A better, and we had about 4 that liked B better. And that's just from the initial feedback.
I'm B.
So I think when you look at the conceptual design versus illustrated design, A was a little bit more appealing, but when you look at the illustrated, B kind of has its own appeal to it. So what we want to ask this group here is to gain consensus on which one you like better. We wanted to.
Do you have some information about, because these paths look like they might divide things, or do you have any more texture you can add to this?
Both concepts, I asked that there's a large dog and there's a small dog area. I asked that we are able to be flexible and split. So if we need to close small dog because the grass is wearing, and we open large dog, and there's, if you notice in the upper right-hand corner, there's alternate entrances, and in the upper left-hand corner for the small dog. So we have the ability then to close small dog, open large dog, and actually put a temporary fence down the middle. So allow small dog, large dog there, so you can access from the main entrance and from the side. Concept
Quick question. There's a little bit of visual lines on the map. Is that just residue of printing, or
it's just the way that it's topography.
That looks like topography.
Part of the scope was due diligence engineering, so they want to do topography stuff.
The other question, big country markers representing lamp posts or lighting.
As you can see, there's some, I guess, fireman plug walls that had the sidewalks there, but I don't think on this one, for the illustrated design, that it has exactly where all that stuff's going to go.
Good question.
I actually like to see what it has actual measurements in it somewhat versus.
When they start to build, they'll do their construction plans. But this one is more, this is the illustrated conceptual design. I think that comes further down the road when they start actually diagramming all of those.
How large is it supposed to be?
It's about 3.75 acres altogether.
Including a portion of the project.
Yeah, there's still the little portion left for future maintenance there.
What's the
Yes.
buildings on the end, concept, the two little buildings on the side?
Pavilions.
These are for the shade structures, depending on what the cost is.
Is the flooring for the pavilion, is that all cement?
No, it's not cement, it's, they're looking at more of like a warning track type surface on a ball field, like a clay mixture. And the idea behind that, I'm sorry?
Is that the same material for the paths?
It all has to come down to cost, so if there's a concrete path within the middle, makes sense cost-wise, then I think you go that direction, but it could be more of that material to save money. If you look, when there's seating areas, it has that pervious type material because dogs like to congregate around their owners and they'll tear up the grass in those areas. So they looked at seating and making sure that they have that clay mixture.
Do you have a dollar figure for either one?
Yeah, they're supposed to be about
Is the area named time out for bad owners?
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve, where's the entrance into each park on A and B? I mean, like the gate reader, where's that going to be?
They're on A, it's underneath those pergola swing areas. It's somewhere within that.
So you can walk through there?
Yeah, so that's more.
Is that what you
artistic. There's going to be.
It looks like it's right in front of those pergolas.
And then on B, I think it's right off. It's one of the side areas.
It looks like it's right at the path.
Yeah.
So you come through the center area and then where the two go out there, that's where the gates are going to be, like right there?
Yeah, they would be gated into the large and the dog and the small.
Right above the shape structure on B, you can see the drawing there for the double gated entry. And the double gated entry keeps dogs from bolting out when you open up to let their dog go in.
Does the dog wash area on both of them have seating as well, or just a wash area?
I don't think they got that far yet to describe exactly what those extra amenities are. It's just right now talking about where the wash area is.
One of my concerns when I was looking at what I believe is B is that this narrow, what is called 5 Club walk, the dogs would be, sort of, you don't want to sort of get them in too close of contact.
Well, are you talking about the perimeter wall?
The firefly.
Down the center. Down the center.
The red spots in the middle.
I thought that was going to be.
Well, that would be leashed. That would be a leashed area. That would all be leashed.
And fence.
And also,
No,
two
that's
trees
open
there,
and
that's
leashed.
probably
The fences are
30,
around
40 feet wide.
When we're bringing them in and out, there could be a lot of dogs in that area, and you don't necessarily want, this was just my impression when I first looked at this, that you're getting a lot of dogs together.
I think what you don't have is the scale though, because, well, I mean, the 3.75 acres is probably 600 feet, 700 feet long, the whole drawing,
It's
so.
hard to tell when you first saw it.
Yeah, both are nice.
Well, I vote A. I vote A.
Yeah, second vote would be you, Tim, Dory.
Right. Tom or anyone else, was there any other commentary? Okay. Robert? You prefer A or B? Any other thoughts or insights? Anyone else in the gallery?
We got to get
All right.
done.
Yeah, let's take a straw poll then on this so we can put a recommendation in front of the main board. We're just out of time, Eileen, so.
These the final?
No, these are just
Conceptual, so.
This is
Which
just-
conceptual is, we need direction. There's one more path.
Yeah, so what will happen?
We could talk this to death.
We want the task force to bring back a recommendation to the board so that the board can select a conceptual design. From the concept, we'll have the numbers that will be associated with that conceptual design at the board meeting also. From that decision then, you can start really talking about, do we take this out? Do we add this? Do we move here? Or how much money do we want to have to spend? So there's a whole other round of discussion once you say, we're good with this concept. Now we talk about the actual construction, what that's going to look like.
Jory, do you have any insights before we go, since you're the closest to this?
Well, I like A because I don't necessarily like the sidewalks going through the center of the park. I think they're running back and forth, having the wide open space is very nice. I think the entrance on A is has a nice impact. I like the pergolas. I think that gives it some artistic. And so but I do like the little shade structures. And
B, that's,
we just
yeah.
said we could add those later.
So you can add those?
All right, so let's put that on the table.
Dory, you said it so much better than me.
Right, so,
I just said I like it. You said why.
So, so I think let's look at, because I think we're all on the same, so it's either A with the addition of shade structures, or B is what we're voting on, so let's vote on A with the addition of
Well,
shade structures.
they have shade structures. Those pergolas are shade structures.
There'll be additional.
I think
If there could be additional, that would be cool. but-
Yeah, okay. So, any disagreement on that?
No.
Okay, so A with the addition of shade structures would be our recommendation. Okay, quickly to look at calendars before folks go. So we have like 2 minutes.
We get into this discussion.
Can I make a suggestion? Can we like come up with like every month, like we have our meetings?
Yes.
You know, we got the fourth, the fourth Tuesday of every month, or the third, we need to come up with a designated time that way we can all block it off.
Yeah, just to say a setting.
Later in the evening next time also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
6 or later. I think.
Not a Monday, not a Tuesday, because of other meetings like CROA and CDD meetings. It's preferable like a Wednesday or a Thursday then.
Which is real every night of the week.
Pretty much. That's what we get.
Yeah, either Wednesday or Thursday is fine, so.
So it's Thursday the 27th? Like a...
No.
Okay.
Is that it?
It's okay with me.
Would that be July or August? Just for
August at 6:30?
Well, Jack said no for that day.
No.
So Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 26th.
Wednesday the 26th?
Yeah.
Do you want to do a 6 o'clock to 7:30?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Wednesday, the what, 20?
Wednesday, August 26th. That's the first week back in school.
And it's right after the Crow meeting, which is probably okay. Are we gonna have,
I have work.
6 to 7:30?
yeah, and are we gonna have
All
a,
right. Could it be if at a different time? Would that help you at all,
I have
Vanessa?
our meetings from 5 to 6. So.
Let's do it 6:30.
Actually, Thursday works. Thursdays work.
Thursday didn't work for Jack.
No, it's like do any Thursdays work?
No, that Thursday doesn't work.
No Thursday works.
But you'd be done at 6:30? You could be here by 6:30? Do we want to do the Wednesday and then we'll go to Thursday if that works better for others? But 6:30 on Wednesday the 26th?
Works for me.
Going once, going twice?
So,
Okay.
Wednesday at 6:30, Wednesday, August 26th.
Yeah. Jack, I think you might have a piece of new business and we're like...
Yeah, one thing we didn't cover last time, you guys basically voted to go forward with the dog park for approval with the board. And the other thing that Dory did, I would like to see the restrooms put in Lakeside.
The second set of restrooms?
Yeah, so we can get rid of the porta potty.
I've thought a lot about that too.
can I ask this question? I think that's getting to the end where we have an issue because we have porta potties, and then the end result is is maybe a bathroom, but maybe we challenge staff to come up with a solution to end the porta potty thing, and maybe it will come up with maybe the only thing is maybe the bathroom, but I don't want to take the leap to create new bathrooms and let them come up with a solution themselves, and then we might get to that point. I hope not, but maybe there's something else we haven't thought of.
maybe there's some modifications that could be made.
Yeah, I'd rather challenge staff to remove those porta potties.
The man of staff of Lakeside will have an instant thought
Procedure, something else like that.
I just, the porta potties were put in because a lot of the residents were complaining about the usage of the lakeside facilities. Being, dirty and shoe prints all over the place, and that the restrooms were being overused. So those porta potties were really there only for farmers markets.
Correct.
We looked at putting locks on them. We looked at maybe moving them into the kind of what's that area? The recycling bin area.
I think where Jack's concern is, and I appreciate it.
I got to tell you though, when you go by that place, it just reeks.
Well, that was the first problem with United. That's one of the reasons why we switched porta companies. Probably this is our third company. And then we had to change the date that they were serviced on as well.
Are they being picked up now after?
No.
Because that may be the simple thing as we discussed is they should be picked up because we wouldn't allow a resident to do something. So maybe it may not make financial sense for us to have. We make money off of the farmers market. Maybe we end up starting to lose money at that point. But I think that's what I'm saying is that there's a lot of discussion like you have right now.
It's a big difference in cost.
But so is creating bathrooms too. So I mean, which is bigger? That's what I'm just saying. Is that I don't. Maybe this is not the forum to discuss it.
Yeah.
But maybe that's an action for staff to come up with a solution, help, and come back to the board about it.
So I think there's a
that's what I'm asking.
We'll
from you all to either group.
Next workshop, we'll do bathroom talk.
Yeah.
They say it's
Sounds
Yeah, I think that's probably a good one too. So Jack brings up another good point of getting the next level of estimation done for the first things on the list and
I had
getting
some
deeper into that.
after last meeting, I went back and I reworked the estimates for a 1A and a 1B plan based off of today's conversation.
Can you explain what 1A and 1B is?
Yeah, when we did that last time, we talked about I'll get it. Helpful. It's the items that you all asked me to look at. A splash pad. Grassing those fields. What's the cost of that? If we have to make another payment on the road to extend down to get to those. So those were the items that we looked at.
Okay. I think let's just keep that process going so we can start.
Yeah, so it was dog park, benches, barbecue grill, splash pad, road, and then the rectangular green space along the civic corridor. And then in B, it was cost for remainder of the road, lighting the tennis courts, putting in the parking lot, restrooms at Lakeside, and then some exercise stations that were discussed along the civic corridor.
On the splash pad, kiddie pool, splash pad Lakeside area we talked about last time, and maybe this will help because I think it might keep some of the fun stuff. I went and met with that group that meets there a couple times a week, the mommies and me type group, and I asked them, I said, what would you prefer? All splash pad? Just the kiddie pool? And they said no, because of depending on what their age. This child and this child will like the kiddie pool, this child will like the splash. So it's possible to keep the kiddie pool, but add the splash pad amenities. Do you think that sounds good there?
Now, the way that they build these things, though,
it's multi-age.
They do zero gravity that might not have as intense amenities as the older kids may like, but it still gives the kids.
Parents very rarely miss a kiddie pool because today they're not even being built. First, they're not ADA accessible and other things, but also it's multi-age. So you have to create a splash for multi-age. And if you create one that's only for certain ages, it doesn't work.
I'm saying that it's multi-age would be keeping the pool and adding.
No, but there's splash pads that are multi-age. Yeah, that would be the best thing I would do. Yeah.
Just
Zero entry.
Yeah.
So there's a zero entry water. So there's a pool. It's just in a traditional sense.
That's right. It has.
So if you did that, the walk.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think there's a lot of due diligence also.
Otherwise, where it fits in zero gravity.
All right, so
Don,
some great things. Hi. You've been quiet the whole time.
I know I have. So we get to new business, and it seems like we're at new business.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to pose a question. Through this corridor development project, has anybody considered a Celebration Arts Center as part of it?
I was going to.
Did you flip him $50?
I did. I promise. He didn't flip me anything. No, but seriously. I mean, we're talking about sports. I mean, that's great. We're talking about the whole community, and there are people that have many varied interests. And our nearest theater is 16 miles away.
Downtown
Sports Center.
Yeah.
And
those are empty.
You know, we would be the ideal.
Well, that's why I thought about draining a pool and just putting one in there.
Let's find there are some other things that has come up in conversations, but not formally in this group, and I think it should.
Yeah, it's interesting. Part of the problem out there, civic quarter, is land. And I've talked with Steve. One of the things we're trying to do is go to the golf course because they received 4 acres of land, which I'm not sure if they have any interest in using. Certainly, CDD is going to apply taxes, I hope. Is that correct, Don? So that may give us a little bit of a...
As far as I'm concerned.
It may be something we could say, hey, look, donate the land to us and we can use it. You can't do anything on the land right now. And that would be sufficient space for us to build something like that.
Yeah, I think there's some other things that have come up in recent conversations among individuals in the group, but not in this setting yet. I think that's kind of where the next stage is. So an art center is one. I heard folks mention.
Maybe civic corridor. Maybe.
Right, I mean, somewhere else. Because remember, we're looking at his holistic picture.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that with Jeffrey Mowen, he drew up potentially on the other side of this street, which we don't own. It's on
Somebody's got a big house they want to donate.
But putting, Scout Shack has come up, because we have such folks in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and their need for kind of a facility to do a lot of the events and the, merit badges and the things that they do with that. Community Gardens come up before Robert left. I didn't get a chance to give him his play. And then also, a teen or tween kind of lounge center as well as a senior lounge, similar groups, different day parties, So some other great conversations to have, and that's what we want to do is keep.
And Debbie promised she would kill us if we weren't.
And I did promise her that I would get this room cleared so that we could get.
Then it's hers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adjourn then. Great.
Thank you, guys.
And she literally killed me. In my sleep.
I'm surprised she has it already.
You know more than I do.
You did something right this week.
I must have. No, I was out of town.
That's right, you were out, but she was here.
I was out of town. That saved my life.
Don, how much do you think 4 acres is going to be assessed?
I don't know, can you make it more?
Good, how are you?